Today on Locked On Red Wings,
Woo!
Alex DeBrincat is a Red Wing.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a podcast producer for the Daily J. You know what? Screw that. You guys know who we are at this point. Alex DeBrincat is a Detroit Red Wing. And Scotty, we had a hell of a ride getting to this point, not just because of the weeks of reporting and the days on end of the same reporting coming out, but then ourselves on Sunday had a hell of a time. I mean, we recorded early talking about Shane Gostisbehere. So just so you guys know, Tuesday's episode is what Monday's episode was going to be. So when you hear us early on Tuesday's episode talking about the fact that the DeBrincat trade hasn't happened yet, that's because we recorded that early Sunday because Scotty had to cover the MLB draft, which also happened on Sunday, and cover the Tigers game. So we were like, please don't have this trade happen. Please don't have this. Well, then the trade happened, and we're sitting here. And, we're waiting for Scotty to, wrap up so we could get on here and record.
Been on camera for the last 6 hours.
He's been on camera for the last 6 hours straight, busting ass, talking about how the Tigers went under slot at 3 and then went over slot at 37, whatever that means in baseball terms. Who knows? I'm sitting here waiting for, us to be ready. I've done all the stuff. I've moved everything to Tuesday. My power goes out. My power straight up goes out for literally, 2 hours, if not more? And then we had a deal. We said, if the power doesn't come on by 11:30, we'll just record Monday and publish it as soon as it, as soon as I get home from work. We'll record and publish it. 11:15, the power comes back on. So here we are, 11:30 at night, recording our Alex DeBrincat is a Red Wing reaction. Scotty, I'm really pumped. I'm super happy, just mainly because I love the trade. I love the contract. I love big picture. But honestly, my reaction when the trade happened wasn't like like you did during the cold open.
Was thank fudge, dude. That's
Finally.
what it was. Golly. I mean, this is huge. This is obviously the biggest move of the offseason. It's not even relatively close. This completely changes the outlook of not only the offseason, but of this upcoming season. I mean, this is what was the biggest need this entire offseason. We said here a billion times, starting back in April, starting back in February, during the season, we were like, this offseason, this team needs a goal scorer, right? Mm-hmm. And finally, now on July 9th, in the middle of the busiest work day, literally of my life, Alex DeBrincat, two-time 40-goal scorer before the age of 25, is now a Detroit Red Wing.
It's really rude of Yzerman to overshadow the Tigers like that, too. This is the Tigers' day, After
the
blowing
Tigers
that lead.
Don't deserve to have a day. They lost the game that was played, and they haven't gone 500 since before I could drive a car. So, that's okay.
That was a year ago.
I'm really all right with that.
But, yeah, so instant reaction, obviously, for me was and it's so funny. I was talking to Kenny, who is my buddy from the ticket, and he called me and he's all hype because he was of the mindset, he was like, I'm not going to let myself get too excited over this until it happens. He didn't want to get himself hurt. I was of the mindset, it's happened. The trade is already accepted. The only reason we haven't heard it yet is because they're doing a contract extension. So the last 3 days, all we've heard is a contract talk. I was like, just get it over with. So when it finally happened, my reaction was, shit, of course it would happen on Scotty's busiest day. And I was like, are we going to be able to do this? And here we are. Thank God we could make it work. And I'm really happy to bring it as a Detroit Red Wing. Scotty, let's go over the details of the trade of the Red Wings acquiring their biggest need, which is a goal scorer. Alex DeBrincat obviously goes to Detroit. First things first, he signs a 4-year, $7.85 annual contract with the Detroit Red Wings. So for the next 4 years until the end of his age 29 season, he is a Detroit Red Wing. One, Evolving Hockey's predictive models are insane because they have, if you pay for their premium tier subscription model, they can offer you contract projections. This is exactly the amount of money that they had projected for DeBrincat for 4 years.
Quite literally.
It's like a Steve Yzerman. I think this is incredible because Yzerman hates giving out term. We know this. He only gave Larkin 8 years because Larkin is the captain. Larkin is the rock of this organization. I thought DeBrincat would get like 6. I thought they'd meet somewhere in the middle. But to get DeBrincat at 4 years, I mean, we talked about this with JT Compher. We talked about this with Justin Hall. Steve Yzerman does such a great job of signing these guys to short-term deals to provide the Red Wings with consistent rolling cap that just is so important and vital towards the longevity of this team's success. Because again, he's building for long-term success, not short-term success. To bring it for 4 years means in 4 years that 7.85 comes off the books. If he doesn't pan out, then it's just off the books. You have that extra money to spend with the cap going up. If it does work out, then you can get the bag and you can extend him. Who cares? He worked out. You give him the money. It's just like it's so good the way it does it. It's having him coming in at under $8 million. Like that's another thing. I didn't think it'd be I thought it would be more than 4 years. I thought it'd be more than $8 million. I didn't think it'd be more than Larkin annually. But just for it to come in under $8 million, I mean, it's just insane value. I know it's exactly what Evolving Hockey projected, but like for me, I'm looking at that number and I go, wow, that is great value for a guy who, maybe had a bit of a down year with Ottawa, but has scored 41 goals twice in his career.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, like this is very much a situation where if he underperforms, then he underperforms, whatever. And in 4 years, it's not a long-term commitment. It's the next 4 years, and he's done still before the age of 30, which like the odds of him being like not super productive and not what the Wings need in his like quote unquote like assumed prime years, I think is pretty few and far between. But also you said something important there, which was like if he does work out, that doesn't mean that he's walking 4 years from now. The cap is going to go up at least twice in that 4-year span.
It's going to be like $10 million higher by the time at least.
Right. Like the cap's going to go up significantly by then, A. And B, he will still only be 29. There's nothing that says the Wings can't just be, okay, this dude, just scored whatever, 30, 40, pick a number. I don't really care. Goals for us at 29 years old. And okay, now we have an opportunity. Let's go slap 4 more years at the end of it. And imagine he'll still be fine with that, take him to his mid-30s then. Like it's really, really difficult for me to find anything like alarmingly wrong with any part of this happening. The Red Wings got their 40 goal score, 40, not 30. I sound like LeBron.
Well,
not 1, not 2, not 3, not 40.
The floor for him is like 30 goals.
Right. He's multiple time 40 goal scorer before the age of 25. Okay. So like you got a 40 goal score. On top of that, you got terms that are I don't want to call them like team friendly to make it sound like DeBrincat like isn't getting paid. Like, I mean, this is still one of the, bigger contracts. I think I'm trying to think of who tweeted it out. Somebody tweeted out it was like just under 10% of the cap. So of like the team's cap percentage, you know what I mean? So like it's not like he's getting nothing, right? I think it was Prashant. And
probably.
So right, yeah.
Usually is.
And that's the dog right there, man. Golly. And then we'll get to it, but like then when you talk about the trade itself, is anyone losing sleep over what we got rid of to go get like a 40 goal score? I don't think so. This is a massive thing. And like I said, we'll talk about kind of the impact and the of not only, like reevaluating the offseason, knowing this, but also looking ahead and like what to expect out of this season. But if we're just talking about on Sunday, what happened and what the Wings brought in and what they had to give up, whether it was financially or in assets to make it happen, there's no way this isn't a massive win.
Well, and without getting, I don't want to talk about what the Red Wings gave up yet until segment 2, but the Red Wings still have, after having terminated Zadina's contract, which was nearly $2 million a year, and having traded away Kubalik's contract, which is 2.5, 4.5 for this next season coming up, like you're offsetting almost $4.5 million of that first 7.85. The Red Wings still have over $8 million in cap space. So like even after the acquisition of the pure goal scorer and having signed 10 guys, I mean, some of which you were bringing back, but like the Red Wings still have $8 million in cap. Like, they still have room to work. And it's just incredible work by Steve Yzerman. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Red Wings gave up in this trade. And then we'll talk about bigger picture stuff. How this changes the outlook of the offseason, how this changes the outlook of the season coming up. And I just want to get some things off my chest about some things people are saying about DeBrincat on the negative side, because it's driving me up a wall. So stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. First, I got to talk to you guys today about FanDuel Sportsbook. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you bet, you can get paid instantly. Oh, by the way, if you would have been really wise to take Riley Green on Sunday for first home run. I love that man. The Tigers don't have a lot to root for right now, but he is one of them. Same with, honestly, Manning and Skubal have been so good. Young guys at least have been fun for the Tigers for the most part.
Max Clark's a ball player, man. Like, I'll obviously that's my show, not this show, but like, it's a dang good ball player.
So after you listen to this ad read and you check out the odds on FanDuel Sportsbook, go listen to Locked On Tigers for first reaction to the combined no-hitter.
First, then they go listen to Locked On.
Yeah. After the show, well, they're not going to tune out the DeBrincat episode. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Scott, this has been an exciting weekend for us. Combined no-hitter, MLB draft, DeBrincat is a Red Wing. Man.
That's one word to describe it. I think exhausting is my term. I'm going to sleep like a baby in about an hour.
Scotty's just tired. He just wants to go to bed.
Literally, yeah. I'm very tired. But DeBrincat's here, baby. I got all the energy in the world for Alex DeBrincat, let me tell you.
So let's take a moment to break down what the Red Wings gave up in this trade before we get back to DeBrincat himself. Honestly, when I heard the Red Wings were giving up 2 picks and 2 players, I got a little nervous. I was like, oh no. Did Yzerman finally have a trade where he gave up fair value or worse? And nope, classic Yzerman fleece. So they gave up Dominik Kubalik, who does stink. I mean, I think he had the second most amount of points on the team last year, or third. Yeah. He was your second most goals scored, I believe, at least. I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank right now. No, but he was up there in point total.
I think third on the team in goals. He had a 20-goal season.
Yeah, he had a pretty decent season, all things considered, but he only had 1 year left on that contract, $2.5 million. It was a nice bounce back season given what he finished off with Chicago, but he wasn't part of the team long term. And honestly, Alex DeBrincat is just a better version of Dominik Kubalik. They fill the same role.
No, I love Dominik Kubalik. That was my favorite acquisition of last offseason. Like, that's the dog. Okay. Like, I truly do love him. But in terms of this trade, that's like you're at the end of the day, like if you're looking optically at like where both of those guys fall in the lineup, you're talking about bringing in a first line 40 goal scorer, and like Kubalik have been a bottom 6 forward that would have scored, somewhere in the teens in goals this year. Like, 1 year left. And even just looking at last season, right? He scored, almost all of his goals, 80% of his goals in the first 6 weeks of the season. And then that was pretty much it the rest of the year. So yeah, that's definitely that. And the 4th round pick are, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that, but like that and the nice. 4th round pick are I guess easier to part ways with than as far as asset management goes than he was, the first rounder.
3rd in goals, 3rd on the team in total points as well, tied with Lucas Raymond at 45. So I was close, not quite, but I was close. Yeah. So like losing him does kind of sting, but like, again, he wasn't part of the long-term goal. He was going to walk in another year anyways. I doubt the Red Wings would have re-signed him. And again, DeBrincat is just an upgrade over him. Donovan Sebrango, he is a solid defenseman prospect. I think he does have a future in the NHL, but nothing higher than like a depth defenseman. And he was like our 4th or 5th best defensive prospect. I mean, he's behind Edvinsson, Wallander, Johansson, guys like that on the depth charts already. So losing him was, I mean, I can live with it. I'm not upset at that whatsoever because, people were talking online and everyone was speculating like Berggren, Soderblom, Mazer, Rasmussen, Veleno, like one of those types of guys who are solid prospects or guys who have like solid NHL futures. Kubalik is an NHL player, but like I said, again, he does what DeBrincat does, but just not as good. Sebrango might have an NHL future. Sebrango struggled this year and we've talked about it. Development isn't linear for anyone. He could still be an NHL caliber guy, but he struggled and got demoted to the Toledo Walleye to get his game right. And I'm not tore up over losing him, so to speak.
No,
and he goes home to Ottawa, and because in Ottawa native, like how DeBrincat comes back home to Detroit.
No, this is I still like Sebrango. I know a lot of people kind of soured on him this year. I still like him as a prospect.
One bad year is not enough to make me sour on a prospect because it happens.
No, for sure. I agree. I'm not saying I was rebuttaling, you specifically, just kind of the general public. But the fact of the matter is, when you're talking about the two players that the Wings gave up, we don't have to re-talk about how good DeBrincat is. You're bringing in DeBrincat, and the two players you gave up, well, I mean, just the whole thing, really. You can talk about the picks, too. You gave up a first. We'll talk about that in a second. You gave up a fourth rounder, two players. Those two players, one was a depth forward that was not a long-term piece on this team. It was not going to be on this team after this upcoming season. And the other was a prospect that I still think has an NHL future, but like that's debatable.
Not even a high ceiling as an NHL future.
Right. Like you can argue ceiling to your blue in the face too. The fact of the matter is like it's not a guaranteed NHL future. I still like Sebrango. I still think he has the ability to be a solid prospect, but like the fact that your young core, this is like the biggest thing. The fact that all of your top prospects, all of the people that have been promoted from prospect status, right? The Berggrens, the Velenos, et cetera, go down the line of the world, right? At the NHL roster, you kept everyone. You kept all of the young core. We had a whole episode where we just talked about who are the potential who is either part of the core right now or who has the potential to be part of the core. At no point did either of these names get mentioned one time in any of those conversations. You know what I mean? Like you kept literally every single like long-term, this dude, we want to see what we have, or even down to like lower percent chance on him, but like, we'll see. Like you did not get rid of a single asset outside of the first rounder, obviously, that was a guaranteed part of this team's future core.
And let's talk too about first of all, 2024 fourth round pick, whatever.
The fourth rounder, I could not care less about.
Especially because you have two fourth rounders in the next draft. Anyways, you have Dallas's as well.
Right.
So we can talk about the conditional first that you gave up. The Detroit Red Wings gave up a conditional first round pick, but the condition on that first round pick, Scotty, is the Red Wings get to choose which one they give Ottawa.
Right.
And so, so the Boston Bruins one is a top 10 protected conditional pick. If it's a top 10 pick, which it most likely won't, but if it's a top 10 pick, the Boston Bruins have the choice to then give the Detroit Red Wings the 2025 first round pick, which means that if that situation were to arise, the Red Wings would then have the choice of giving them either the 2025 Boston first round pick or their 2024 first round pick. The Red Wings are going to have the better of the first round pick no matter what. The condition is basically the Red Wings are going to have the better first round pick. So whether it be Boston or Detroit,
it's like a swap
they get to keep them. Yeah. Like Ottawa's going to be getting the worst of whichever one is the worst one. Like that is that. Yes. Thank you.
You got a 40 goal score for depth forward, fourth round pick, the worst of two first round picks, and a decent prospect that some people think has an NHL future and some people don't. So like, there's zero question about who the winner of this trade is as far as asset management goes.
So let me water this down even more. You still have a pick in every single round in 2024.
Right.
You still have all of your best prospects and all of your core pieces.
And even the young players that we're like, oh, let's wait and see on, right? Like if you would have asked 100 Red Wings fans what players would have been given up for DeBrincat, I bet you over 50% would have said Jonathan Berggren was in that trade.
I would have, or Joe
I
Veleno.
I would have gone to FanDuel and placed my mortgage on over 50% of those people that you interview say that Berger is part of that trade. So it's like, it's not even just the prospects or just like the top end talent on your NHL roster. That obviously was never happening. You kept all of the, oh, let's wait and see guys too. Like you kept all of the young, like, oh, let's give Veleno another year and see what we got. Oh, let's see if Bergeron can take another step forward. He's never going to be like an elite, like 30, 40 goal scorer, but let's see what we got. And I'm like, you kept everyone. You literally kept everyone.
We're taking another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what this means for the Red Wings offseason and the season coming up. So stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. So Scotty, I think it was a week and a half ago, I think it was after the draft, and they kept their picks. I was like, what are we doing? What's the direction? I don't know anymore. Then the Red Wings signed like 10 guys. I was like, what are we doing? What's the direction? I don't know anymore, because it seemed like they just clashed so hard.
Yeah.
One felt like a team that was still rebuilding. Eisman even said, we're not out of the asset allocation phase. And for once, I believed a word that came out of that man's mouth. He's such a freaking liar. I don't know why I believe anything that he says. And I mean that lovingly.
That was the first thing I said. You went on a rampage and I went, Steve Yzerman is a liar, bro.
Yeah, clearly. And then he's signs all these guys. I'm like, this is winner mentality. Why is he signing all these guys, right now, if you're in asset allocation phase? But now with the acquisition of DeBrincat, and I may have said this on an episode when it sounded like this was becoming reality, that it turns everything on its head. Everything makes sense. It feels like it's the final piece clicking into place. Not trying to say it's the final piece and the Red Wings are Stanley Cup contenders now, but it feels like the piece that makes this offseason make sense. It takes this offseason from like a C+ to me to an A+ immediately, because now you got to use all your draft picks. You had to use all 3 of your seconds. I know you traded back a little bit for the 1. You used your 9th and 17th pick. You signed a bunch of guys to fill out your depth, your middle 6 and your bottom 2 pairs. And you addressed your biggest need in goal scoring by getting Alex DeBrincat. Like, Steve Yzerman this offseason has addressed every single need that has stared the Detroit Red Wings in the face this offseason. My only thing that I still think that this team's going to need to address in the future is goaltending. And I'm not saying like Husso and Reimer and or Lyon can't hold down the fort, but long term, I don't think any of these guys are necessarily the solution. But
there's more than that. I mean, like, there's defensive depth that needs to prove itself. There's, there's still scoring, depth scoring that needs, like, there's still, before we start talking about like hoisting Lord Stanley, like, there's still a lot of holes that this team needs to, between the margins that this team needs to improve on.
But he addressed them all to some degree this offseason. This team as a whole, roster-wise, is a ton better than it was at the end of the last season, which is the same thing we said last offseason. So, like, every offseason, he's built this team up while also maintaining cap space.
Yeah, so this was the best way I can, I guess, articulate it. Like, the way that I have thought about this offseason now was, for a while, it was, okay, look, like, there is no DeBrincat in free agency, right? There is no, like, oh, you're going to go out and you're going to give a bag to somebody who is young and going to be a part of the core going forward and is going to be some top end 35 plus goal scorer. That was not out there in free agency. That was like super obtainable, right? At least not for a cost that we were willing to give out. So already going into free agency, you can go back and listen to the free agencies tomorrow episode. We were like, yeah, like, it's probably not going to be like as shocking. We're probably not going to bring in a bunch of huge names. It's probably going to be a lot of those like depth signings, Andrew Kopp level signings or lower. And
we were right, huh?
That's what it was. But again, that's what you have to play the hand that you are dealt in free agency. That's, trades is where you can be an aggressor. You can go, you can people love to use the word untouchable. It's not real. Like if you Wayne Gretzky was traded. Like if you have if you have the assets, you can make any trade happen. And so but in free agency, it was like, they addressed depth. And that was something that we talked about, the first episode back from like after free agency, right? Was like this team's depth got way better and the top end talent didn't. So who knows how big of a step that is going to lead to this fall. But like at the end of the day, this team's depth took a pretty sizable, I don't want to say like substantial, but a pretty sizable step forward, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that they're still missing is just that top end, really like game changing, put the puck in the back of the net type of player. And here it is. And so now the recap of your offseason is no longer just, like the depth got better, but like that's it. Now it's you added a 40-goal scorer to the top of your lines, obviously, right? You added a premier scoring talent in the NHL, and everything underneath him got substantially better now because just by adding a top end talent, a lot of stuff is going to just get bumped down one, but also you now, because of what you did in free agency, you signed 10 people, a lot of which were improvements over what you had. You spent money in free agency wisely to address depth. When a premier top-end talent wasn't available to just give a contract to in free agency, you made a very good trade and brought one in yourself, and now it's the stars align. You addressed everything, depth better, top-end talent better, goaltending better, playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, and that leads me to my next question is like, where does this leave the Red Wings? Because let's be honest, this team still does need a lot to be a true Stanley Cup contender.
100%.
Like you stated it yourself just earlier in the segment, like this team isn't at hoisting the Stanley Cup level yet. But to say that they're not in the mix for the playoffs, I think would be wrong. I mean, they were in the mix for the playoffs up until the trade deadline just about this past year. They didn't get eliminated until the final week of the season. They had 80 points, but I mean, would it be crazy to say, I think 92 points got the Panthers at the playoffs? You think it'd be crazy to say they could push 92 points this year? I think it's possible. I
don't think that's ridiculous at all.
I think with the improved depth on defense and forward, and you're bringing in that top tier goal scoring talent, like you said, pushing everyone else kind of down in a lineup to a more comfortable spot. I think that it is tough to tell with how hard this division is. I mean, you got a stacked division.
It's the biggest factor. Yep.
You got to start winning some of those games. And I think the Red Wings have a roster now that, maybe isn't like, I don't know where Boston's going to be at. I can never tell. So we're going to have to wait and see. So I'm not going to even predict that. But, like Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay Lightning, who are still getting a little bit older, lost some pieces, maybe it's possible that they start stealing some games from those teams and getting those points and competing with those guys.
They already stole some from some of those teams you just listed last year, right? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, you went into this offseason and now you're exiting the offseason rather with, did the blue line improve its depth?
Yes.
Substantially.
Yes.
Like big time substantially. The blue line, the top pairing is going to be the same, but the bottom four are significantly. I cannot stress enough how much better the bottom four are than last year. The forward core, you just added a 40-goal scorer to the top line, so that's quite a bit better. I feel comfortable in saying. And then you also is the bottom 9 better? Is lines 2 through 4 better? Yes. Like objectively, yes. You got better. You brought in more players that fit your system. You got, Comfort's obviously a big deal. Like you went through and now not only is your bottom 9 better, lines 2 through 4 better, your top pair is better, your defense is better, and you addressed backup goaltender, which you literally just straight up didn't have one for the second half of last season. Like you improved across the board depth wise, and now in July added something to improve the top end talent as well. I feel like I'm just kind of talking in circles, but like I cannot stress enough how everything was now addressed this offseason.
Well, and just put a cherry on top. Look at the war card, the player card that Jay Fresh tweeted out once this trade had happened. I mean, he is a 92 percentile projected war. Like that is where he's at. Top 8% forward in the league. And that's a 3-year weighted average. And you can do, and to be fair, again, he did have a down year with Ottawa, only 27 goals this past year. Ottawa was pretty banged up all year. They never had their top 6 all healthy at any given time.
They always suck until Christmas.
The Locked On Sens guys will say as much. But like you look here, 74% offense, obviously defense. He is the player he is. He is a goal scorer, offense only type guy. That's what you're getting. He's a goal scorer.
Yep.
Not everyone's going to be able to do everything. I don't even care about that. 91 percentile in power play, 93 percentile finishing, 97 percentile in penalties, which means he draws penalties, doesn't take them, which you're going to hear me say again about Shane Gostisbehere in tomorrow's episode. He is a positive attribute on the ice in every given way, except for even strength defense. But that's fine because, again, you're getting him to score goals. So let him do that. Let him cook. Again, you can see that obviously the offense, defense, and finishing did go back down in 22, 23, and people will say, well, that's because he's not playing with Patrick Kane. And yes, there might be some truth to that. But to take all of what Alex DeBrincat can do away from him because of who he played with is incredibly unfair to his God-given abilities. He is a talented goal scorer in his own right and can do so without Patrick Kane. And he's going to have to prove it this year, but I think he will. And if I hear one more person, Scotty, say he's too small or his plus minus was terrible, newsflash, Ottawa missed the playoffs too. Like their plus minus as a team wasn't great. And on top of that, to be a goal scorer in the NHL, you don't have to be 6'2". It helps, but you don't have to be. We've mentioned it on this podcast. You can be 6 foot, you can be 5'8", because Johnny Gaudreau is 5'9". Brad Marchand is 5'8", I think. Like, you can have guys who are under 6 foot score a ton of goals. There are countless examples of guys who do it. I think Braden Point's done it. Maybe not 40, but in the 30 goal range as well. Like, there's countless examples of wingers who can go out there and score 30, 40 goals and not be huge. Because in the end, when you're scoring goals, it's about your shot deception, your agility, your hands, like things like that, your vision, your hockey IQ. And also, DeBrincat plays bigger than he is. I think it was Jim Costa that tweeted out that in the last 3 years, there's like only 3 players, or since 2007, I think he said, I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head. Since 2007, there's 3 players who have recorded 100 plus seasons while scoring 40 plus goals, or 100 plus hit seasons while recording 40 plus goals. Alex Ovechkin, Steven Stamkos, and Alex DeBrincat. DeBrincat's 5'7", and he's throwing his body around like he's 6'2". So, like, I don't want to hear about his size. He does, yes. Again, I will go back. He does have to prove he can do it without Patrick Kane. But
yeah.
I have no doubt that he can.
Yeah, obviously that's like a big thing people love to point to. And like, I'm not trying to compare these two players. That's not what I'm doing. Okay. So everyone take a huge deep breath and let me continue talking. Calm down. But like, we do have a point per game center like that is a playmaker first. That will be on a line with him. Like, you understand? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like he's coming into a situation where there's just like, oh, no one moves the puck. You know, everyone's awful. No one knows how to like. You're bringing in a playmaking first elite. You're putting him next to rather a playmaking first elite skater that at his best is a point a game player. Like the notion that he's just gonna be like in this like barren wasteland, like of talent, and no one's going to be able to give him the puck is preposterous.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that he's going to be great. I really do. And my final thing is, I know we're at 34 minutes already. My final thing is, I mean, I think this is a no-brainer, but I want to hear what you think. DeBrincat first line winger, Raymond bumped down to the second line. Because I don't see Raymond and DeBrincat playing on the same line.
Yeah. Who's going to play the other wing?
David Perron.
Okay, so your top line is...
Because you want to know why I say David Perron. Perron is fantastic in the corners. And you need a guy who can get in the corners and start and generate the offense for your playmaker and your goal scorer. Raymond and DeBrincat on either side of Dylan Larkin isn't going to get that going. You need just one of those guys.
I think a lot of it also has to do with I think on it, like, undoubtedly DeBrincat and Larkin are at the top. Like, that's very calm down. That's very obvious, right? Honestly, I think I don't even know if it's a play style thing, because like if whatever, but like I think Raymond's development this year, you need to calm down, dude. I think Raymond's development this year is going to determine a lot. I mean, if I don't know, there's an argument kind of both ways. Like but it might open up the ice a little bit more for Raymond to be on that line. You know what I mean? Like it might, like the biggest thing was him getting knocked off the puck and whatnot. Like it being on the top line with them might help him and might get some of the attention away from him and let him kind of cook. But in the same breath, if he's proving that he can score without being on that line, like if they do put him on second line right side, and he then does take like the proverbial third-year step forward, I mean, they might just keep him down there just to, spread out the goal scoring a little bit, like with what they did with Bertuzzi last season. So I don't know. That's a debate. I'm sure they'll mess with the lines a ton when we get to camp and summer hockey and whatnot. But oh golly,
it's exciting.
I can't believe it, man. And again, like, they didn't mortgage the future at all.
Exactly.
They literally still, like you said, still have a first rounder, the better first rounder in that same draft. They still have a fourth rounder in that same draft. And they didn't get rid of any of the big, like, blue chip prospects at all.
They have a pick in every round next year. They have all of their they got all their picks this year. They got to use them all. They have all of their best prospects, didn't give up any core pieces. And they have Alex DeBrincat and still have $8 million in cap. Like, it's just Yzerman W, man.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it just clicked. It makes sense now. And we're back, baby. We are back.
We are back, baby. I hope we're back. You know what I'm saying? I hope this is a hockey town move right here, man. I'm so excited. This is the most excited I've been for a hockey season in many, many years.
Yes, sir.
I think, I don't know. I don't want to just get like too outlandish and just like say a bunch of stuff. And then, 2 weeks from now, I have to be like, oh, we kind of overreacted. But like, I think now I can guarantee you the mindset within the locker room is this, but I think it's very justified, I'll say, for the fan base's reaction going into opening night being this should be a playoff team.
Yeah, you're right. Like, our expectation should be wild card at the very minimum.
Yeah. No one's saying they're going to win the division or anything like that, but I think the baseline expectation now is go make the playoffs, go be a wild card team.
That's so nice to hear.
How nice is that to hear, man?
Last year we were talking like the goal was push for the playoffs until late, and they did.
We freaked out for like 2 important games in Ottawa in February last year. Now we got a whole season of expectations. I'm kind of nervous, but like it's a good nervous that we haven't felt in a while.
As long as Chris Ilitch doesn't get in front of any cameras and say the rebuild is X, we're good. It didn't work out last time he did that with the team that he owned.
I'm not even sure Chris Ilitch knows when hockey season starts.
And I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with it.
Let Yzerman cook, baby.
Let Yzerman cook.
Scotty, we'll be back with a new episode on Tuesday. New to you. We recorded it Sunday before the trade.
Right.
So some of the news is a little bit outdated.
Yeah, so at one point we go, DeBrincat still hasn't been traded.
we also talk about how no one signed Pius Suter, so we also have to hope that Pius Suter doesn't sign by the time that episode comes out.
Naturally, he will at this point, yeah.
So yes, we'll be back on Tuesday. Same time. Same place. It's your team. Alex DeBrincat is a Red Wing.
All
every day.